Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, let the world fade away. Let your thoughts quiet, your breath slow, and your body sink into the comfort of rest. As the stars gently blink above Mount Olympus and the Aegean Sea whispers its lullabies, I invite you to journey into the ancient world of Greece, where love blossomed in temples, gardens, and under moonlight skies. These are not tales of haste, but of eternal longing, not of loud passion, but of silent devotion. In these whispered words, we remember the stories that once echoed through marble halls and mountain winds. Let us begin. Long ago, in the quiet folds of ancient Thrace, where the rolling hills met dense forests and rivers flowed with the music of the gods, there was born a boy named Orpheus. He came into the world not with a cry, but with a calm breath, as if even in his first moments he heard a melody no one else could. His mother was Calliope, the muse of epic poetry, and his father, some said, was the mighty Apollo himself. Others whispered that he was mortal through and through, but the truth seemed to lie somewhere in between, for no child of ordinary birth could have fingers so tuned to harmony, nor a voice that stirred the souls of wild animals and calmed the fiercest of storms. As a child, Orpheus was quiet. While other boys played and wrestled, he would sit near the river, listening to the wind brushing through leaves, to birdsong dancing on the air, to the soft babble of water as it curved through stone. And soon he began to echo those sounds. A lyre was placed in his hands, some say by his mother. Others claim it was Apollo himself. No matter the origin, once the strings met his fingers, the world changed. Flowers turned their faces toward him. Wolves lay beside lambs. And people from distant lands walked for days just to hear him play. But all of Orpheus's beauty and fame meant little to him, for he had not yet known love. That was until the day he wandered deeper into the woods than he ever had before. There, beneath the shade of old olive trees, he saw her, Eurydice. She was a dryad, a forest nymph wild yet gentle, a daughter of nature itself. Her hair flowed like golden wheat in the sun, and her laughter rang like tiny bells strung by starlight. Orpheus stopped breathing. Eurydice, sensing a presence, turned, and in that quiet glance, something ancient awoke. They did not speak. Not then, but they both knew. What followed were days and nights of silent companionship. They would walk together in fields of lavender, fingers brushing, but rarely holding. She would watch him play, and he would watch her dance barefoot on moss-covered stones. The world seemed to hush around them, honoring the fragile, blooming love they shared. They were wed in the heart of the forest, surrounded not by marble or men, but by trees and birds, wind and sun. The muses themselves sang, and the god Hymenaeus held the torch. But the flames sputtered and smoked a quiet omen no one dared speak of. Their joy was short-lived. One afternoon, Eurydice wandered near a stream, her feet kissing the grass. A serpent, lying hidden among the reeds, struck. A quick flash of fangs, a cry muffled by wind. She fell. The light in her eyes faded as the world dimmed around her. When Orpheus arrived, he dropped to his knees. Her body was still warm, her lips parted as if in mid-song. But her soul had slipped away, taken by Hermes, the guide of spirits, into the shadowed realm of Hades. Orpheus did not cry. He did not scream. He only stood and began to walk. No mortal dared enter the underworld willingly. It was a place of silence and shadows, of forgotten names and eternal sleep. But Orpheus, armed only with his lyre and his unbreakable love, walked the winding path downward, past caverns and echoes, through cracks in the earth where even the sun feared to shine. He came to the river Styx, black and still. Charon, the ancient ferryman, refused his passage, but Orpheus played a single song, a melody of love that had bloomed and withered in a moment. And Charon, ancient and unmoved for centuries, wept. He ferried Orpheus across. Cerberus, the three-headed hound, barred the gates of Hades. It growled, its eyes blazing. But again, Orpheus played. A lullaby, soft, gentle. The beast's snarls faded to whimpers. It lay down, ears folded, and slept. Finally, before the throne of Hades and Persephone, Orpheus stood. The king and queen of the dead, cloaked in silence and draped in stillness, looked on with cold curiosity. Orpheus spoke no words. He raised his lyre and played the song of his heart. It was not a song of complaint, nor of rage. It was the music of longing, of lying awake in the quiet darkness, reaching for someone who is no longer there. It was the hush after goodbye, the soft echo of footsteps that never return. It was love undeniable, unchanging, and undone. The underworld itself wept. Tantalus stopped reaching for his unreachable fruit. Sisyphus sat on his stone. The Furies, goddesses of vengeance, wiped tears from their ashen cheeks. When the final note faded, Orpheus stood, eyes lowered. Hades, unmoved for eternity, whispered, Eurydice would be returned to the living world. But with a single condition. Orpheus must walk ahead of her, and he must not turn to look back until both had fully emerged into the sunlight above. He nodded. The path back was long and narrow. Darkness clung to the air. Behind him, he heard the softest sound of breath, a footfall. He wanted to speak, to ask if she was there, but silence was the cost. Step by step, he climbed, upward toward the faint light. But doubt is a seed that grows quickly in the heart. What if Hades lied? What if she wasn't behind him at all? He hesitated. The exit was near, just a few more steps. And then he turned. It was just instinct, a twitch, a breath of fear. In that single moment, Eurydice was there, and then she was not. Her eyes met his, wide with love and sorrow. Her mouth opened, perhaps to say his name, and then, like mist in morning sun, she vanished. No scream, no farewell, just silence. Orpheus stood in the light, alone. The gods said nothing. The wind did not stir. He called her name, again and again. But the underworld is a place where no echo returns. He tried again, begged, pleaded, but the gate was closed. This time, forever. He wandered the earth, his lyre forever cradled in his arms, though he rarely played. When he did, the skies grayed, the oceans calmed. Birds forgot their own songs to listen. He would sit by rivers, under trees, or in caves where no voice returned. And in those moments, in the deepest stillness, he would play not to move the world, but in hopes that somewhere below, Eurydice might hear. They say he never loved again, that he spoke to no woman, that his heart remained tethered to the shadow of her soul. And when he died, some say torn apart by Maenads, others say he simply faded, his lyre was cast into the heavens. There, among the stars, it shines even now. And sometimes, in the silent hours before dawn, if you listen closely, you might hear a soft melody rising with the wind. It is not loud. It is not angry. It is Orpheus, still playing, still calling, still in love, and Eurydice. She listens. And so Orpheus sang into the silence, and the world, though vast, seemed lonelier without her light. But love, dear listener, has many forms. Some bloom like a spark and vanish with a sigh, and others, like the quiet roots of an old tree, grow deeper with time unnoticed but unshakable. Our next tale is not sung by gods or echoed in grand halls, but whispered over a humble hearth. It is the story of two souls who asked for little yet gave all they had. Let us now drift from the shadowed paths of grief to a modest village, where kindness once opened a door and love welcomed the divine. Let us journey now from forest shadows to a quiet valley, where winds whisper gently through olive trees, and the air smells of warm bread and fresh rain. The stars above shine just as brightly here, though fewer gaze up at them. And in this quiet village, where the gods once walked unrecognized, lived an old couple, Baucis and Philemon. They were not noble, they were not known, but their love, oh, their love, was woven into every thread of their simple life. Baucis was a woman of gentle hands, hands that kneaded dough at dawn, that stitched worn cloth, and that stroked her husband's wrinkled cheek when the world outside grew cool. Philemon was a man of humble strength, his back bent not just from years, but from the burden of a life lived in labor, tending to the soil, fetching water from the stream, and repairing the roof when storms rolled in. Their house was made of mud brick and timber, patched where the walls had grown tired, and roofed with thatch browned by sun and time. There were no marble columns, no silken drapes, no gold, only warmth. A warmth born not of fire, but of love. The kind of love that speaks in shared silences, in worn hands reaching for one another beneath woolen blankets, in eyes that need not speak to be understood. And so they lived, content in their smallness, rich in each other. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in soft purples and dusky golds, two strangers wandered into their village. Their robes were dusty, their feet blistered, and their eyes heavy from rejection. For they had knocked on every door in that place, seeking food and rest, and each door had been shut. Harsh words had followed them, averted gazes, locked latches. What none had known, what none had paused to wonder, was that these strangers were not merely men. They were gods in disguise, Zeus, king of the skies, and Hermes, swift-footed messenger. The king of Olympus had grown curious and disappointed. He wished to see for himself whether mortals still held any kindness in their hearts. Door after door, he found his answer, until, at the edge of the village, near the marsh where weeds grew tall and herons slept on one leg, stood the humble home of Baucis and Philemon. And there the gods knocked once more. Baucis opened the door, her eyes kind despite their age. She looked at the strangers, saw the weariness in their faces, the dust on their robes, and she did not ask who they were. She did not pause in suspicion. She simply opened the door wider and said, "Please, come in." Philemon rose from his stool, brushing flour from his sleeves, and greeted the strangers with a bow, old knees creaking. "You must be tired. Sit, rest your feet. Let us bring water to wash them." And so the gods entered. The fire was small, flickering in a stone hearth. The bench was hard, the bread coarse. But what the home lacked in wealth, it made up in warmth. Baucis set to work, preparing what little they had boiled herbs from the garden, olives preserved in brine, a few figs, and goat's cheese, old but still good. Philemon poured wine, the last of it, into chipped cups and offered them with both hands. Their voices were soft, their smiles sincere, and something strange began to happen. As Baucis poured more wine from the humble clay pitcher, she noticed it never emptied. No matter how many times she tilted it, the level remained the same. Her eyes widened. Philemon noticed too. The olives, they did not run out. The bread, there was always one more slice. They looked at one another and knew these were no ordinary travelers. With trembling voices, they stood and bowed low. "Forgive us," said Baucis, "for not seeing sooner. You are gods, and we are not worthy." But Zeus only smiled, his expression gentle. "You have given more than all your neighbors combined. You gave from your need, not your excess." Hermes, ever light of heart, chuckled and patted Philemon on the shoulder. "And you didn't even complain about the wine being sour." Then the air in the house shifted. Zeus rose and gestured to the door. "Come, walk with us." Confused but obedient, Baucis and Philemon followed the gods outside. As they stepped beyond the threshold, a sound like thunder rolled across the valley. The sky darkened, not with storm, but with divine will. The earth beneath their village trembled. From the crest of the nearby hill, Baucis and Philemon turned back and watched in awe and sorrow. Their village, every home, every shop, every locked door, was swallowed by a great flood. Water surged, rising fast, erasing cruelty and coldness in moments. But their cottage, it stood firm. And even as they watched, it began to change. The thatched roof gleamed gold. The mud walls turned to marble. Wooden beams transformed into columns that glistened like polished ivory. Vines of emerald leaves curled upward, wrapping the pillars in green lace. The door, once creaking, was now carved from cedar and studded with bronze. Zeus turned to them. "You have shown the heart of hospitality," he said. "And so let this be your temple. From now on, let this be a place of welcome and love." The gods offered them a reward anything they wished. Baucis and Philemon looked at one another, then back to the gods. "We ask for little," said Philemon, his voice steady. "Only that we may serve as keepers of this temple. Let us grow old together beneath its roof. Let us die together when the time comes. Let neither of us live a day without the other." Zeus nodded. "So it shall be." And so they lived. The temple became a place of refuge for travelers, of learning and warmth. Baucis and Philemon welcomed all rich or poor, noble or lost offering bread, kindness and a tale or two. Years passed. Seasons came and went like gentle tides. Their hair turned silver, their steps slowed. But their love never wavered. Each morning they greeted one another with a smile. Each night they sat by the fire, fingers entwined. And then, one day, as they stood outside the temple, watching the golden light of dawn, Baucis looked at Philemon and said, "Do you hear it?" He listened. There was no sound, and yet their hands tightened. And as they smiled, eyes locked in quiet farewell, something miraculous happened. Their feet grew rooted to the earth. Bark crept gently up their legs. Leaves unfurled from their arms. In that sacred moment, Baucis became a linden tree, soft and fragrant. Philemon became an oak, strong and enduring. And there, side by side, they stood for all eternity. Two trees forever reaching for one another, forever whispering in the wind. If you ever wander the quiet places of Greece and see a linden and an oak entwined, pause a while, sit beneath their branches. You may feel warmth that lingers, a sense of welcome. And if the wind is just right, it may carry to your ears the softest of whispers. "My love," she says. "Always," he replies. As the oak and the linden stood entwined in their quiet eternity, the night air carries us onward, not to temples or sacred forests, but to a solitary studio carved into a sun-washed cliff above the sea, where marble dust lingers in the golden light, and the sound of waves echoes like a heartbeat beneath stone. In the island city of Cyprus, there lived a sculptor named Pygmalion, a man of unmatched skill and quiet soul. While others sought the company of feasts and fleeting romance, he walked alone, not out of pride, but from a longing deeper than words, a longing for beauty untouched by cruelty, love unstained by falsehood. To him, the world seemed fractured. He had watched too many betrayals pass beneath polished palace ceilings. He had seen the sharp smiles of courtly games and heard laughter that cut deeper than blades. So Pygmalion turned inward. He shaped his world from marble and silence. His studio was a sanctuary. Chisels rested like instruments upon a wooden table. Unfinished figures stood in corners like half-forgotten dreams. And then one day, his hands found the shape of a woman. She began as a vision, rising in his thoughts like the first blush of dawn. He did not know her name, but he felt her grace, her stillness, the curve of her cheek softened by imagined breath. With every hour he carved, the marble warmed beneath his hands. He gave her a tilt of the chin that spoke of quiet wonder. Fingers curled as if reaching for a world beyond stone. Days passed, then weeks, then months. When the statue was complete, even the birds stopped to gaze. She was beauty made still. He called her Galatea, though she could not answer. Pygmalion began to speak to her. At first, just as one might murmur to the wind or the stars. But soon he poured out his thoughts, the stories of his childhood, his fears, his dreams. He dressed her in woven silk, brought her petals from gardens, laid food before her as if she might one day taste it. And in the silence, he began to love. Others mocked him, gently calling him mad, a fool for worshipping a statue. But Pygmalion did not flinch. To him, Galatea was more real than the whispers of those who never saw beyond flesh. On the day of Aphrodite's festival, when incense curled through the air and songs floated on the breeze, Pygmalion walked to her temple with hesitant hope. He bowed low, his hands trembling as he placed a garland upon the altar. He whispered, "Goddess of love, if you hear me, give me a bride like her. I do not dare ask for more." The fire upon the altar flickered. For a moment, the flames blushed rose gold. And though the temple was crowded, Pygmalion felt the world grow still, as if the goddess had heard. He returned home as twilight deepened, and the stars blinked like shy blessings from the sky. He stepped into his studio, where Galatea waited, unchanged. He touched her hand gently, and it felt warmed out. He stepped back. Breath caught. Her lips parted. Her eyes opened. She blinked, as if waking from a dream. And then she smiled. The goddess had not granted him someone like Galatea. She had given her life, a house filled with golden light that no lamp could mimic. Outside, the sea sang louder. Inside, Pygmalion wept not for sorrow, but because love, in its quietest prayer, had been heard. They married beneath a sky dusted with stars, not in marble halls, but on a sun-drenched hill where olive trees bent low, and the wind carried laughter down to the sea. Their love did not roar or shine for crowds. It whispered, always, in shared glances and long silences. And in time, Galatea bore a son. They named him Paphos, and the city that grew from his name became sacred to Aphrodite. Forevermore. So sleep now, dear listener, knowing that sometimes the deepest love begins not with touch or word, but with patience, longing, and a heart that refuses to give up hope. From the still breath of marble and dreams carved into flesh, we now sail toward the whispering waves of the Hellespont, where the sea splits land like a wound, and love dares to swim through storm and salt for a single glimpse of a waiting light. Let the tide carry us gently now, to a tower on the shore, where a young priestess once kindled both flame and feeling, her heart hidden high above the sea. Hero was her name. A devotee of Aphrodite, she lived in solitude in a tower near Sestos, lighting the temple's lamp each night. Her beauty was quiet, modest, a girl cloaked in white linen, hair dark as midnight, her voice soft as prayer. She did not long for grand gestures or golden offerings, but she whispered to the sea when no one listened, confessing secret hopes the goddess might one day answer. Across the water, in Abydos, lived Leander, a youth bold in heart, whose eyes held the spark of windswept dreams. One day, during a festival to honor Aphrodite, he saw Hero standing by the temple torch. The crowd fell away. Time paused, and he knew. That night, he followed the stars and the soft reflection of her flame across the sea. He found her alone in the tower, and there, beneath oil lamps and vine-draped arches, he spoke not with rehearsed poetry, but with trembling honesty. "Let me love you," he said, "even if the gods must part the sea for me to reach you." Hero, torn between her vows and the beating of her mortal heart, hesitated. But love, quiet, patient, inevitable, grew between them like ivy on stone. So they made a promise. Each night, she would light a lamp at the top of her tower, a beacon to guide him. And each night, Leander would swim across the Hellespont, braving the current to reach her. They met in silence and shadow, under stars and the hush of waves. Their moments were brief, but full. In the flicker of lamplight, they held each other as if the world would end at dawn. He would arrive soaked and shivering, but smiling. She would wrap him in dry cloth and kisses, warming his skin with her touch and her breath. Seasons passed. The sea grew colder. Then, one night, a storm rose without warning. Clouds veiled the stars, and the wind snatched the flame from Hero's lamp. Darkness swallowed the shoreline. Rain fell like nails. Leander, already in the water, swam blindly searching for a light that wasn't there. The waves were cruel. The night offered no mercy. In the morning, Hero found his body on the rocks below her tower. Cold, still, but peaceful, as if the sea had only kissed him one last time before letting go. Grief bloomed in her like a wound that would not close. And so, they say, she climbed to the top of her tower and looked once more at the sea they both had trusted. Then, with a final whisper to the goddess who had watched from above, she let herself fall. Down, down, into the arms of the tide. The sea took them both, but lovers who light each other's way do not vanish entirely. Even now, on windless nights, fishermen claim to see a soft glow above the water like a distant flame, flickering still. The sea holds many stories, dear listener. Some end in sorrow, others in transformation. From Hero's tower and the waves that claim two hearts, we now drift into another tale of love defying death, of gods stirred by morning, and of feathers brushing gently against the wind. In the kingdom of Thessaly, a young king named Ceyx ruled with wisdom and warmth. By his side was Alcyone, his queen, daughter of Iolaus, the keeper of the winds. Their love was strong, a harmony of laughter and shared dreams. They walked the palace gardens like children of spring, hands always entwined, lips always smiling. But kings have duties, and the sea is a restless thing. Ceyx felt the need to sail to a far-off oracle, seeking answers for his troubled realm. Alcyone, wise and sensitive, begged him not to go. "The sea is your enemy," she said, "and the winds my father's children are wild and cruel." But Ceyx, stubborn and sure, kissed her softly. "I will return, my love. I always return to you." With a heavy heart, Alcyone watched his ship fade into the blue horizon. Days passed, and weeks, no word, no sail returning. One night, as she slept with tears drying on her cheeks, the god Morpheus, sent by divine pity, came to her in a dream. He took the form of Ceyx pale, drenched, and silent. He reached out, not to speak, but to show. A storm, a shipwreck, a man's last breath whispered on salt water. Alcyone woke screaming. She ran to the shore as the sun rose. And there, like fate, carved from sorrow, his body washed up on the sand. She collapsed beside him, her sobs louder than the waves. The gods, moved by her love, could not bear the scene. In their mercy, they transformed her. Feathers replaced fingers. Her cries turned to soft, mournful calls. She rose as a bird into the sky. And then Ceyx, too, stirred. His form shifted, lifted, lightened. He joined her, wings outstretched. Now, as kingfisher birds, they glide over the sea that once parted them. Every year, during the halcyon days, the calm week in winter, when storms sleep, and the sun warms the waves, they nest together on the still waters. And for those few days, the world grows gentle. Because once, long ago, love proved stronger than the sea. Let your breath slow now. Let these tales of loss and devotion settle in your heart like gentle waves on a sleeping shore. Love, in all its forms, tragic, eternal, patient, has always found its way into the stars, the trees, the sea, and even into whispered words that carry us into sleep. Soon, dear dreamer, the next story will unfold. But for now, rest in the stillness. The lamp is still burning. And as the tide carried the souls of Alcyone and Sikhs into the skies, leaving feathers in the wind and sorrow in the sea, the sun, too, had once known love. Not in the hush of night, but beneath the golden warmth of day. This is the story of Apollo, god of the sun, and a boy named Hyacinthus, whose friendship blossomed like spring, only to fall like petals too soon in bloom. Long ago, when the world was still young, and the songs of gods echoed in the hills and rivers, there lived a prince in the land of Sparta. His name was Hyacinthus. He was not only noble by blood, but beloved by nature itself. The wind adored him, and the trees whispered when he passed. The streams curved joyfully to greet his feet, and birds followed him as if he were their own. Hyacinthus was radiant, not in the way of jewels or riches, but with something more rare, a warmth that made others smile, a presence that made the world feel less heavy. His hair caught sunlight like a net woven from morning gold, and his laughter light and playful could chase clouds from the bluest skies. Many admired him, mortals and gods alike, but none more than Apollo. Apollo, god of the sun, poetry, music, prophecy, healing, and archery, was a deity of many talents and boundless brightness. He rode his golden chariot across the sky each day, lighting the world below. Yet for all his splendor, there was an emptiness in him, a yearning he could never quite name. Praise from mortals filled temples, but not his heart. Songs were sung in his honor, but none reached the quiet corners of his soul. Then he saw Hyacinthus, not in a grand moment, not in a ceremony or festival, but simply walking through a meadow, the prince barefoot, plucking flowers as if he were gathering pieces of the sky. That sight changed something in the god. Apollo descended from Olympus, his divine form cloaked in a gentler shape, to walk among mortals not as a ruler, but as a friend, to be close to him, to be close to Hyacinthus. The bond that formed between them was not forged in fire or ambition, but in soft moments sunlight drifting through olive groves, shared laughter echoing through the hills, gentle silences that said more than words ever could. They ran side by side, chased deer through flowering fields, bathed in rivers, and lounged in the shade of cypress trees. Apollo, the god who inspired poets, now found himself the student. Hyacinthus taught him how to laugh, not the regal laugh of a god, but the easy kind that comes from being alive. In turn, Apollo showed him the lyre, taught him to draw music from string and heart. They were inseparable, and though the gods were immortal, and the prince was not, it seemed for a moment that time itself paused to admire them. Others noticed, of course. Some admired. Some envied. The god Zephyrus, the west wind, had once tried to win Hyacinthus' affection, but the boy's heart was already filled with warmth, with light, with Apollo. Jealousy, like a whisper in the wind, stirred the air. Still, nothing could pull them apart. Until that day. It was late spring, when the fields of Laconia glowed with 1,000 blooms, and the sky stretched like endless silk. Apollo and Hyacinthus were playing discus, a favorite game of theirs. The god, ever eager to impress, summoned his strength and spun the discus into the sky. It cut through the air like a blade of light, arcing perfectly in the sun. Hyacinthus ran after it, laughing as always, feet barely touching the ground, fast and fearless. Then came the shift. The wind turned. Or perhaps it was fate. Perhaps it was something older than both. The discus, guided or not, curved unexpectedly. It struck Hyacinthus in the head. He collapsed. The silence that followed was unnatural, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Birds froze in the air. The trees stood still. The sunlight dimmed. Apollo ran to him, faster than thought, faster than light. He fell to his knees, cradling Hyacinthus in his arms. Blood trickled through the boy's hair, staining the grass red. His skin, once glowing, was pale now. His lips trembled, trying to form words, but even those, the wind stole away. "No," Apollo whispered. "Not you. Not like this." He tried everything. Songs of healing, sung in a voice that made stars tremble. Magic older than Olympus. Tears, hot and divine, that burned into the earth. But even a god cannot undo destiny. And even the sun cannot chase away all shadows. Hyacinthus died in Apollo's arms. The earth seemed to weep with him. The skies clouded, hiding their face. The river near them overflowed, mourning its friend. Apollo stayed there, motionless, for what felt like forever, holding the boy who had shown him joy. But from that sorrow, something gentle emerged. Where Hyacinthus' blood had touched the ground, small green shoots began to rise. And from those shoots, delicate purple flowers unfurled petals, shaped like sighs, trembling in the breeze. Apollo named them hyacinths in honor of the boy he loved, so the world would not forget, so that every spring, when those flowers bloom, a part of Hyacinthus would return, not in flesh, but in beauty. And Apollo? He returned to the skies, to his golden chariot and daily ride. But the god of light was never quite the same. He still shone, yes. He still warmed the earth and brightened the seas. But sometimes at dawn, when the sky is pale and gentle, and at dusk, when it blushes with longing, it is said Apollo's thoughts drift back to that field, to the boy with golden hair and a laugh that could silence storms. He does not weep, not anymore. But the wind sometimes carries his songs, soft, bittersweet, not as a god mourning a mortal, but as a friend grieving a friend. Because some loves are not meant to last, but they are meant to be remembered. And some friendships shine so brightly that not even death can dim their light. So when you see hyacinths swaying in the breeze, kissed by the morning sun, or cradled in twilight's hush, remember the boy who ran too fast and the god who loved him. A love that bloomed in laughter, and now lives on in petals touched by light. And so, from the petals of hyacinths and the sorrow of the sun, let us drift into the quiet of night, where the moon hangs high and silver in the sky, and dreams float softly like feathers in the dark. This is the story of Selene, the moon goddess, and Endymion, the most beautiful dreamer the world has ever known. Long ago, when the heavens were still young and the stars more curious than cold, the moon was more than a silver coin drifting in the sky. She had a name, a soul, a heart, Selene. She was the goddess of the moon, riding her glowing chariot across the night sky. With her pale silver hair and gentle eyes like pools of starlight, Selene watched over the world each evening, pouring moonlight over sleeping lands, guiding the tides, and casting a calm spell on all who wandered beneath her gaze. She was quiet, thoughtful, and alone, not by choice, but by the rhythm of her life. While the sun burned bold and bright, Selene drifted through the dark, a silent guardian, always watching, but never seen. Until one night, she looked down and saw him. His name was Endymion, a shepherd boy who lived at the edge of Mount Latmus. He slept alone in the hills, where he tended his flock by day and dreamt by the stars at night. Selene first saw him lying beneath a fig tree, his face lit only by her moonlight. He was beautiful, not in the way heroes are carved from bronze, but in a gentler way. His face was calm, peaceful, untouched by pride. The moonlight seemed to adore him, wrapping him in silver, as if the night had chosen him for something greater. Selene stopped her chariot in the sky. She could not look away. Night after night, she returned, gliding silently above him as he slept. She watched the slow rise and fall of his chest, the flutter of dreams behind his closed eyelids. And the longer she watched, the deeper she fell. She began descending, not all at once, but slowly, tenderly. One night, she brushed his brow with moonlight. The next, she whispered his name. And finally, she stood beside him as he slept, her heart beating like thunder behind the quiet curtain of stars. She touched his face, and he stirred not awake, but caught between sleep and dream. He smiled, not a full smile, but one of knowing, of recognition. "Who are you?" he murmured, eyes still closed. Selene did not answer. Instead, she leaned down and kissed his forehead, a kiss so soft it could have been a breeze, and he slept on. The days passed, then weeks, then months. Selene no longer drifted through the skies as she once had. She lingered above Mount Latmus, pouring moonlight like a lullaby, feeding Endymion's dreams with her love. But love, even divine love, is never simple. Selene's heart ached, not from doubt, but from longing. For as much as she cherished his sleeping form, she wanted more. She wanted his voice, his gaze, his waking presence. Yet she feared waking him. What if he did not love her as she loved him? What if her light frightened him? Or worse, what if time itself would take him away? So she made a choice. A quiet, desperate choice. She went to Zeus, the king of the gods. With a bowed head and trembling voice, Selene made her request. Let him sleep forever. Let him never grow old. Let him dream always, so I may love him always. Zeus, moved by her sorrow, or perhaps amused by her stubborn love, granted her wish. And so Endymion was placed in eternal slumber, deep in a cave on Mount Latmus, where time could not touch him. He would never age, never wake, and never leave. Selene visited him every night. She descended from her silver chariot, barefoot and glowing, and lay beside him in the cool darkness. Sometimes she whispered stories. Sometimes she just listened to the rhythm of his breath, the beat of his silent heart. She ran her fingers through his hair, kissed his lips, and poured her love into his dreams. And he dreamed of a woman made of moonlight, whose touch was soft as mist and whose love was eternal. Did he know it was her? Did he love her back? No one knows. But sometimes he smiled in his sleep. The world moved on. Empires rose and fell. Rivers changed course. Stars died and were born again. But deep in a quiet cave, a boy slept on, and the moon still watches over him. Even now. Sometimes, when the moon is full and the world is silent, you might feel her presence, a hush in the air, a silver glow on your pillow, a warmth in your dreams. That is Selene, still loving, still waiting, still pouring her heart into the sleep of the one she chose. Because some loves do not ask to be returned. Some loves do not shout or demand. They simply are, quiet, constant, infinite, like the moon above us all. After the moon wept for her dreaming lover, and the stars blinked silently above, there came a wind warm and unseen that carried us into a kingdom where beauty was both a gift and a curse. This is the story of Psyche, the girl whose face made goddesses jealous, and Eros, the god of love, who fell not for beauty, but for a soul. Long ago, in a land far beyond our maps, there lived a mortal princess named Psyche. Her beauty was so great, so blinding, that people left temples of the goddess Aphrodite to worship her instead. This angered Aphrodite deeply. The goddess of love would not be overshadowed. So in secret, she summoned her son Eros, the golden-winged god of desire. Make her fall, Aphrodite commanded, in love with a monster. Something hideous, something unworthy. Eros nodded. But when he arrived, bow in hand, ready to strike, he saw Psyche. And he hesitated. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something in her gaze, a kind of quiet sadness, as though she'd been waiting for someone she'd never met. As he watched her, his hand trembled. And then, by fate or foolishness, his own arrow nicked his skin. A golden drop of desire. Eros fell, quietly, utterly, eternally. but he could not tell her who he was. Time passed, and Psyche, though admired by all, found no love. Her sisters married, but no man dared ask for her hand, not because she wasn't worthy, but because she was too perfect. Even her own father feared she'd been cursed, so he asked the oracle of Delphi what to do, and the answer came. She shall be taken to the top of a mountain. There, a terrible winged creature shall claim her as bride. Psyche wept, but obeyed. She was brave, even in sorrow. They led her to the mountain and left her there, but no monster came. Instead, the west wind swept her up soft as a mother's hands and carried her far away to a palace of air and light. She woke on silk, ate from golden trays, heard invisible voices that welcomed her. And at night, he came. She never saw his face, but his voice was kind, his touch gentle, and his love real. I will come only in darkness, he said. Do not try to see me. Trust me. And she did, at first. They were happy, nights filled with whispered laughter, mornings wrapped in warmth. Psyche had never felt so safe, so wanted. Yet a question lingered in her heart like a thorn. Who is he? Why must he hide? Her sisters came to visit, and jealousy bloomed. You don't even know his face, they said. What if he's a monster? A snake? A trickster? The seed of doubt was planted. That night, while her lover slept, Psyche lit a small oil lamp. She leaned over his face and gasped. He was no monster. He was Eros god of love himself. His skin shimmered gold, and soft wings curled at his back. She leaned closer in wonder, but a drop of oil spilled from the lamp. It landed on his shoulder. He awoke and saw her, and sorrow filled his eyes like thunderclouds. You did not trust me, he whispered, and now I must go. With a beat of his wings, he was gone. The palace vanished. The wind fell still. Psyche stood alone, heart broken, soul aching, but she did not give up. She loved him. And love, true love, does not rest. It rises. She sought out Aphrodite herself, begging to be reunited with Eros. The goddess, still burning with pride, gave her impossible tasks. Prove your worth, Aphrodite sneered. Complete these, and you may earn your love. 4 trials, each meant to break her. But Psyche faced them all. She sorted mountains of seeds. She fetched gold and wool from deadly rams. She journeyed to the underworld and returned. She carried a box filled with divine beauty, yet opened it and fell into a sleep of death. It was then, finally, that Eros returned. He had watched her from afar. He saw her fall, and he came not as a secret, but as a savior. With a kiss, he woke her. I left because I thought you did not trust me, he said softly, but I was wrong. You did not fail me. You only struggled, as all souls must do. He carried her to Olympus, and there, before all gods, he asked for her hand. Zeus smiled. Even Aphrodite, perhaps a little moved, agreed. Psyche was given ambrosia, the drink of immortals. She rose no longer just a mortal girl, but a goddess, the goddess of the soul. And so love and soul were joined at last, not by magic, but by choice, by effort, by trials, by trust. If you listen close, you may still hear them, 2 voices laughing softly under the stars, walking together in twilight, hand in hand. Because real love does not begin in perfection. It begins in faith, and is sealed by the courage to find each other again, even after the fall. And so, dear dreamer, as our lamp dims and the scroll of the stars slowly rolls closed, we leave behind the marble halls of Olympus, the whispering winds of mountaintops, and the quiet sighs of forgotten lovers. Tonight, we traveled far from Apollo's golden lyre to Psyche's brave heart. We watched gods fall from mortals, and mortals rise into divinity. We saw love in every form, jealous and gentle, tragic and triumphant. But most of all, we saw that love, real love, is never perfect. It struggles, it stumbles, it waits, it hopes, and sometimes, even in silence, it endures. Maybe, just maybe, in your dreams tonight, the moon will whisper like Selene, or a soft wind might carry you like it did, Psyche, or perhaps, like Hyacinthus, you'll find a place in the stars. Let your heart rest, sweet listener. May the myths wrap around you like a blanket spun from the sky itself. Good night, and may love eternal, mysterious, and bright find you in your sleep.